I'll use Amelia Sterling throughout. The champagne burned a warm path down my throat while I stared at Reginald Blackstone's lips, moving in what felt like syrupy slow motion. My manicured nails carved tiny half-moons into the soft flesh of my palms as the crystal chandelier above us shimmered and warped. His voice floated in the air, both distant and razor-sharp. My boy deserves a partner forged in the same fire that built this family, he declared to the long mahogany table crowded with his golf club cronies, hedge fund allies, and his own stunned relatives. Not some alley cat waif draped in rented silk, play acting at belonging among lions. 46 perfectly coiffed heads swiveled in perfect synchronization, pinning me beneath the weight of their curiosity, waiting to see whether the commoner courting the heir would dare bark back at the patriarch. My pulse hammered behind my ears as I smoothed the linen napkin, hand-embroidered, probably worth more than the first car I ever owned, and set it beside the untouched filet of sole that cost enough to feed a family of 4 for a week. "Thank you for the exquisite meal, Mr. Blackstone," I said, rising with deliberate calm. "And thank you for at last speaking the truth that's been simmering in your eyes for 12 months. Amelia, please." Ethan's fingers closed around my wrist like a plea. I brushed a kiss across his knuckles, then released him. "It's all right, darling. Your father's merely reminding me of the natural order of things." The curl at the corner of Reginald's mouth was a masterpiece of smug triumph, the look of a man who believed he had finally chased off the stray that dared sniff around his pedigree. If only he could glimpse the storm gathering behind my smile. I glided from that dining room with my spine straight as rebar, past the oil portraits glaring from gilded frames, past the maids who suddenly found the baseboards fascinating, past the gleaming rolls, Royce in the port, Coach Ree that Reginald had bragged could buy my entire childhood neighborhood. My sensible Audi, matte graphite, paid for in cash, waited at the far edge of the gravel like an afterthought. Ethan caught me before I reached the driver's door, his breath fogging in the cool night air. I'm so sorry," he choked, tears carving silver tracks down cheeks, still carrying the last golden hint of summer. "I never imagined he'd." I folded him into my arms, breathing in cedar and heartbreak. "This isn't on you. I'll make him take it back. No more diplomacy, Ethan. No more translating his cruelty into his old-fashioned." He had finally said the quiet part loud, and now the masks were off. "Amelia, don't let him torch what we have." I pressed my lips to the worry line between his brows. "Real things don't burn so easily." He nodded, reluctant, and I slipped behind the wheel. The estate shrank in my rear view mirror until its thousands of lights looked like cheap costume jewelry against black velvet. My phone began its frantic dance before I reached the gatehouse. I let it ring. I knew the choreography. Ethan's mother, Lillian, would try gentle placation. His sister, Beatrice, would send a string of heart emojis and an offer of wine. They were kind in their paralysis, tethered to Reginald by habit and fear. I had heavier lifting to do. I thumbed the voice command. "Call Harper." My assistant answered on the first ring despite the hour. "Amelia, talk to me." Harper Grant had been reading my silences since we were both 23 and sleeping in the office of a bankrupt startup. Pull the plug on Blackstone Global. A beat of stunned quiet, then the clatter of her laptop waking up. "Woo, close Monday. Lawyers are polishing the final docs. The penalty clauses alone will be a rounding error. Draft the termination letter tonight. Quote, fundamental misalignment of values." Harper's exhale crackled with fury and delight. "What did the old dragon say?" "Hey," called me alley cat waif to my face while passing the truffle oil. "Consider it done." Want me to salt the earth with a press leak. Let him marinate in the official notice until breakfast. Then we feed the wolves. I killed the call and let the city swallow me. Neon bled across the windshield in watercolor streaks. Each billboard a reminder of how many nights I'd once counted change for bus fare. Reginald thought his private investigators had peeled back every layer. Foster care shuffle, cafeteria vouchers, double shifts unloading trucks to buy textbooks. He never dug past the surface scars to the empire I'd sewn together in the dark. He had no idea that the shadowy conglomerate his board salivated to acquire, Sterling Dynamics, was mine, built patent by patent, poached engineer by poached engineer, every acquisition masked behind shell companies and loyal proxies. Underestimation had always been my sharpest blade. By the time my elevator whispered open to the penthouse, my phone glowed with a name I hadn't expected quite so soon. Blackstone CFO, Vincent Harlow. Amelia Vincent. We just received a termination notice from Sterling Dynamics. There must be some error. No error, Vincent. Ask your CEO what he served for dessert. I ended the call, kicked off my heels, and poured 2 fingers of 30-year Macallan. The balcony wrapped the skyline in glass and starlight, somewhere across the river. Reginald was discovering that the garbage he'd tried to sweep out the door owned the only broom that could save his house from burning. Morning arrived with a barrage of notifications. 72 missed calls, 9 from Reginald himself, each one a fresh bruise to his ego. I was slicing mango over Greek yogurt when Harper pinged. Financial channels are circling. CNBC wants blood. Also, your doorman says Reginald Blackstone is pacing the lobby like a caged peacock. I wiped my hands on a linen towel. Escort him to Conference B. The one with the ergonomic torture devices. Give him 30 minutes to contemplate his life choices. 3 minutes later I entered to find the emperor without clothes. Hair tousled, tie askew. The man who'd lorded over prime rib now looked like a mortgage broker who'd misplaced a decimal. Amelia. He stood too quickly, pride and panic warred across his face. Thank you for seeing me. I remained standing. 4 minutes. He swallowed audibly. My remarks last night were, beneath me. Beneath you. A laugh slipped out before I could cage it. You announced to 46 witnesses that I was an alley cat in borrowed pearls. You humiliated me at your table while I was there as your son's partner. I'd had too much Bordeaux. You'd had 12 months of contempt finally finding its voice. His knuckles whitened on the back of the chair. What will it take? A public apology. A charitable donation. Name the price, and the merger proceeds. I strolled to the floor, to ceiling window, city sprawling beneath us like circuitry. Tell me, Reginald, why exactly does Sterling Dynamics owe Blackstone Global its future? Because the market demands. Because your legacy systems are antique, your patents are expiring, and your board is one bad quarter away from mutiny. But that's not why I'm walking. I'm walking because you showed me your soul, and it's the color of old money scared of new blood. I turned. You cataloged my childhood zip codes, but never asked how a girl who once shared a toothbrush with 3 foster siblings now signs 9-figure checks. You assumed poverty was the ceiling, not the basement. His silence stretched like a wire about to snap. The merger is dead, I continued. Not because you wounded my feelings, but because your culture is a locked gate and I build doors. This will bankrupt us. Then maybe the market's trying to tell you something. I moved toward the exit. Ethan doesn't need your empire. He's clever enough to build his own. He'll hate you for this. Better hate forged in integrity than love bought with cowardice. I left him clutching the conference table like a life raft. Harper met me in the corridor, eyes sparkling. Fairchild Group just RSVP'd for Monday. They brought champagne and a term sheet. Leak it to the journal before lunch. She hesitated. Ethan's in your office. Been here an hour. I supplied caffeine and silence. My heart performed an inconvenient somersault. I found him perched on the edge of my desk, sleeves rolled, hair falling into eyes that held both his father's steel and his mother's empathy. "Hey," he said softly. "Hey." I watched the feed, every word. He crossed the carpet in 3 strides and framed my face with careful hands. "I've been a coward, Amelia. Making excuses. Hoping he'd warm to you, praying manners would win. Last night I saw myself in his mirror and hated the reflection. Ooh, Ethan. Let me finish. I benefited from every gate he kept shut. I'm done." He pressed his forehead to mine. "If you'll still have me, I want to build something that doesn't carry his fingerprints. No trust fund, no country, club Rolodex. Just us." I laughed through sudden tears. "You're willing to trade a silver spoon for a bootstrap. I watched you terminate $2 billion because a man forgot you're a person. I think we'll manage groceries." I kissed him until the city outside blurred. Harper's voice crackled over the intercom. "Board of Blackstone Global just called an emergency session. Rumor is they're drafting a motion to sideline Reginald and reopen talks." I hit speaker. "Tell them Sterling Dynamics entertains conversations with leadership that values merit over pedigree." Ethan's eyes widened, then narrowed with something like exhilaration. "You're staging a coup." "I'm offering evolution or extinction. Their call." He exhaled a shaky laugh. "Dad will sue everyone in a 5-mile radius." "Let him. Lawsuits are just slow applause." "Mom will need therapy. Beatrice will write a concept album." He grinned, sharp and sudden. "When do we start?" "Right now." And that is how the girl once labeled Alley Cat became the architect who dismantled a dynasty brick by brick. Not with vengeance, but with the quiet force of a woman who refused to beg for a seat she'd already built the table to replace. Monday dawn broke with Reginald's resignation splashed across every financial headline. By noon, Sterling Dynamics announced a strategic merger with the newly independent Blackstone Global, restructured under a board that looked like the future instead of 1987. Ethan accepted the role of Chief Innovation Officer, turning down his father's spite-fueled counter offer to bankroll a rival startup. 6 months later, beneath a grove of ancient oaks on a coastal cliff, far from marble mausoleums, Ethan and I exchanged vows witnessed by Harper, a handful of foster siblings I'd put through college, and Beatrice, who surprised everyone by playing an original piece on cello that didn't suck. Lillian attended, eyes puffy but smiling. Reginald sent a curt email declining the invitation and requesting his silver candlesticks be returned. We donated them to a women's shelter. Before I let you go, a small gift for anyone still listening. Stories like this one live inside audiobooks, and I've partnered with Audible to give you your first month free. Hundreds of thousands of titles, 0 cost, link in the description. Feed your curiosity, the world is wide and waiting. The evening had started with such promise. Ethan had texted me a photo of the place settings. His mother's spode china, the one with the tiny gold rim, that cost more per plate than my first semester's books. Dress code, dazzle but don't outshine Dad's ego. He'd joked. I'd chosen a midnight, blue silk sheath I'd bought off the rack and had tailored within an inch of its life. Simple, classic, expensive only to those who recognized the quiet labels. I'd walked into the Blackstone mansion feeling like I belonged. Not because of the gown, but because the man I loved had spent a year convincing me I did. The dining room smelled of rosemary and old money. Crystal caught the candlelight and threw it back in 1,000 directions, like the room itself was showing off. I'd shaken hands, accepted compliments on my radiant skin, laughed at jokes about yacht maintenance. Ethan's hand rested on the small of my back, a steady anchor. Then dessert arrived. Individual chocolate soufflés that rose like tiny brown volcanoes, and Reginald stood to toast the future of Blackstone Global. The speech began with gratitude to legacy, pivoted to the importance of shared values, and landed squarely on my inadequately pedigreed head. I remember the exact moment the room tilted. A woman in pearls gasped theatrically. A venture capitalist mid-bite froze with fork suspended. Ethan's grip tightened until I felt bone. I waited for the punchline, the wink, but of course we welcome Amelia with open arms. It never came. Instead, Reginald raised his glass higher, to protecting what generations have built from those who would dilute it. The silence that followed was a living thing, thick and hostile. I felt every gaze like a separate brand. My first instinct was to laugh. Surely this was performance art, a test. But Reginald's eyes, pale blue and glacial, locked on mine with the certainty of a man who had never been contradicted in his own home. Ethan surged to his feet. "Jade, sit down, son." The words cracked like a starter pistol. Ethan sat. I remained standing because collapsing felt like surrender. The napkin in my lap became a lifeline. I folded it into smaller and smaller squares until the linen threatened to tear. When I finally spoke, my voice surprised me with its steadiness. "Mr. Blackstone, I appreciate the clarity. It saves us all future awkwardness." I placed the napkin beside my plate, the soufflé untouched and already sinking. "Ethan, walk me out." He followed like a man in a trance. In the foyer, beneath a chandelier that probably required its own insurance policy, I kissed his cheek. "Call me tomorrow." "Amelia." "Tomorrow," I repeated softer. The night air outside tasted metallic, like the city itself was angry on my behalf. I drove with the windows down, letting wind rip tears from the corners of my eyes before they could fall. Harper's voice filled the car when I dialed. "You're calling after 10 on a Friday." Either the oysters were bad or the in-laws finally showed fangs. "Fangs it is." I recounted the scene in clipped sentences. Harper's curses were creative enough to make a sailor blush. "Termination letter. Already drafting. Want me to blind copy the board? Do it, and schedule a breakfast meeting with Fairchild's CEO. If Reginald wants to play King of the Hill, we'll buy the whole mountain." I hung up and let the highway lights strobe across the dashboard. My mind cataloged assets the way other people counted sheep. The AI diagnostics platform we'd acquired last quarter, the quantum encryption patent, quietly filed under a shell corp in Delaware, the team of PhDs poached from MIT with signing bonuses that could buy small islands. Reginald thought he'd insulted a girlfriend. He'd actually declared war on a phantom empire. The penthouse was dark when I arrived, city glow painting silver rectangles across the hardwood. I poured scotch, kicked off my heels, and opened the secure laptop. Lines of code and balance sheets replaced the sting of humiliation. By midnight, I'd mapped 3 alternate acquisition paths, each one capable of swallowing Blackstone Global whole. Sleep came in fragments. Dreams of suffocating under crystal chandeliers, of Ethan's face crumpling, of my 10-year-old self hiding report cards because straight A's still couldn't buy dinner. I woke at 5, brewed coffee strong enough to strip paint, and watched the sun bleed gold across the river. Harper arrived at 6:30 with croissants and a tablet full of carnage. Termination notice delivered at 4:57 a.m. Their general counsel called me personally. Sounded like he'd aged a decade overnight. She slid a second folder across the counter. "Fairchild wants to meet at 9. They brought a term sheet that would make Mephistopheles blush. I flipped through pages dense with zeros. They're offering a 45% premium. Because they know Blackstone is wounded, and we hold the scalpel. I signed where indicated. Initials sharp as paper cuts. Tell them we'll counter with a board seat and ethics clause. Harper's grin was feral. You're enjoying this. Immensely. The lobby showdown with Reginald played out exactly as scripted, down to the bead of sweat tracking from his temple to his collar. But the real theater happened 2 days later, when Blackstone's board, facing a shareholder revolt fueled by leaked emails of Reginald's strategic vision, dinner, voted 11-2 to remove him as CEO. The press release cited mutual agreement to pursue new opportunities. Ethan read it aloud over takeout tie in my kitchen, voice cracking between laughter and grief. He's golfing in Scottsdale by now, convincing himself this is a sabbatical. I twirled noodles around chopsticks. He'll be back. Men like him always try to reclaim the throne. Let him try. The locks have been changed. We clinked beer bottles like champagne flutes. The merger with restructured Blackstone closed 90 days later. Ethan designed the integration plan himself, weaving our agile teams into their legacy systems with the precision of a watchmaker. Former rivals became collaborators, engineers who once rolled eyes at corporate overlords, now swapped algorithms in the cafeteria. 6 months after the dinner that wasn't, Ethan proposed on the roof of the building that now bore both our names, Sterling, Blackstone Tower. He'd rigged the rooftop garden with string lights and a single table. No ring box. Instead, a patent filing for a joint invention we'd sketched on napkins during late-night brainstorming. "Marry me," he said, sliding the document across the linen. "And let's keep building things that outlast both our fathers' egos." I signed my name beneath his, then kissed him until the city below disappeared. The wedding was small, held in a vineyard where the grapes were still on the vine, and the only crystal was in the wineglasses. Harper gave a toast that made grown men cry. Beatrice played a cello solo she'd written titled Empire of Us. Lillian danced with my foster brother, who'd become our general counsel. Reginald sent a fruit basket with a card that read, "Best wishes, RB." We regifted it to the caterers. A year later, Sterling, Blackstone launched a scholarship fund for first-generation college students studying STEM. The inaugural class named their dorm Alley Cat Hall. Reginald tried once to sue for trademark infringement. The judge laughed him out of court. Ethan and I still argue over whose turn it is to debug the smart fridge, still fall asleep drafting white papers on napkins, still wake up grateful that one cruel dinner became the crucible that forged something unbreakable. Respect, it turns out, isn't served on spode china. It's built line by line, patent by patent, choice by choice. And sometimes, the garbage you tried to take out, it comes back with a fleet of trucks and hauls away your entire kingdom. I never told the full story of the night that changed everything until now, mostly because some details still make my hands shake. But memory is a generous editor, and distance has sanded the splinters smooth. Let me take you back to the moment the soufflé collapsed. The kitchen staff had timed the desserts to perfection. Each ramekin arrived puffed and trembling, dusted with cocoa like fresh snow. I remember thinking how fragile perfection was. One jostle, and the whole thing caved. Prophetic, in hindsight. Reginald's toast began innocuously enough. He thanked the chef, praised the vintage Bordeaux, credited his father and grandfather for the vision that had kept Blackstone global profitable for 3 generations. Then he pivoted, glass raised. And to my son, Ethan, who will carry that vision forward with a partner who understands the weight of legacy. The room exhaled in collective approval. I smiled, because that was what you did when the king acknowledged your existence. Then came the twist. Because some alliances strengthen the bloodline, while others dilute it. He didn't look at me, but every other eye in the room did. The silence stretched until the candles themselves seemed to hold their breath. Ethan's fork clattered against porcelain. "Dad, what the hell?" "Language, son." Reginald sipped his wine, savoring the vintage and the moment. I felt the words land on my skin like acid. Delete. As if my DNA carried some contaminant his purebred line couldn't risk. I stood slowly, chair legs whispering across antique parquet. 40. 6 faces tracked my movement like spectators at a hanging. "Mr. Blackstone," I said, voice steady enough to surprise even me. "Thank you for articulating what's been unspoken for a year. It clarifies future decisions beautifully." I folded the napkin into a perfect square and laid it beside the ruined sofa. "Ethan, shall we?" He followed me through the house like a sleepwalker. In the marble foyer, beneath a mural of some long, dead Blackstone shaking hands with a president, I turned to him. "I love you. That hasn't changed. But I won't spend my life auditioning for a role your father refuses to cast me in." Tears glittered in his lashes. "I'll fix this." "You can't fix what isn't broken in you. It's broken in him." I kissed him once, soft and final, then walked out into the night. The drive home blurred. I don't remember stopping at red lights or merging lanes. I only remember the moment I pulled into my garage and the sobs finally broke free. Not for the insult, though God, it stung, but for the waste. A year of Sundays trying to win over a man whose mind was a locked vault. Harper found me on the balcony at 2 a.m., still in the blue dress, barefoot, scotch untouched. She didn't ask questions, she simply wrapped a blanket around my shoulders and started typing. By dawn we had a war plan. The termination letter went out at 6:03 a.m. Vincent Harlow called at 6:07, voice cracking like cheap plaster. "Amelia, whatever Reginald said, we can smooth. Tell your board the deal dies with his dignity." I hung up and showered until the water ran cold. Monday morning, Fairchild's CEO greeted me with coffee and a smile sharp enough to shave with. "Heard you're in the market for a dance partner who doesn't step on toes." We shook on a counter offer before the muffins arrived. Reginald's lobby meltdown was almost anticlimactic. He'd rehearsed righteous indignation in the elevator, no doubt, but the sight of me in jeans and a blazer, casual armor, threw him off script. 5 minutes, I reminded, tapping my watch. He lasted 3 before begging. I let him dangle another 2, just to watch the color drain from his face. Ethan's arrival in my office afterward was the only part I hadn't scripted. He looked like he'd aged a year in a weekend. Eyes bloodshot, jaw shadowed. But when he spoke, his voice held a new gravity. "I told Mom I'm moving out, told Beatrice to stop writing songs about bridges we keep burning. Told Dad." He swallowed. "Told Dad if he ever speaks to you like that again, he loses me too." I studied him, this man I'd watched navigate boardrooms and charity galas with equal ease, now standing in my office willing to trade empire for integrity. "You sure?" I asked. "Because there's no undo button on this." He laughed, a broken sound that mended itself mid-air. "I've spent 30 years thinking love meant loyalty to blood. You showed me it means loyalty to truth." We sealed the new covenant with takeout and a whiteboard, sketching org charts until the markers ran dry. The board coupe unfolded like dominoes. First a leaked recording of Reginald's dinner toast. Someone's phone, accidentally on purpose. Then shareholder letters citing reputational risk. By Friday the vote was unanimous. Reginald's resignation photo showed him clutching a cardboard box, the mighty fallen to mortal logistics. Ethan designed the integration with surgical precision, preserving jobs while excising rot. We kept the Blackstone name for market continuity, but rewrote every policy manual. The new mission statement, drafted on a cocktail napkin during our third date, ironically, now hung framed in the lobby. Merit is our only legacy. A year later, the scholarship fund launched with a ceremony in the same ballroom where I'd been publicly dissected. Former foster kids in caps and gowns filled the space once occupied by Pearl, clutching elites. Ethan emceed, voice cracking when he introduced the first recipient, a girl from South Central who'd coded her first app on a library computer. Reginald watched from the back row, uninvited but unable to stay away. Our eyes met across the crowd. He looked smaller, somehow, the lines around his mouth etched deeper. I offered a nod, acknowledgement, not absolution. He returned it, then slipped out before the applause. Some bridges stay burned, others smolder into something useful. Ethan and I married on the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, because we'd learned light matters most when darkness tries to claim the room. We wrote our own vows on index cards the night before, trading them like children swapping baseball cards. His ended with, "I promise to build with you, not for you, because empires are lonely and love is collaborative." Mine. "I promise to keep choosing you, even when the choice is hard." Because easy was never our story. Harper caught the bouquet and immediately tried to auction it on eBay for the scholarship fund. Beatrice Liv streamed the first dance. Ethan and I swaying to an acoustic cover of "Ain't No Mountain High Enough." Because clichés become truth when you live them. Lillian sent a toaster with a note. "For mornings when the world feels too big." We use it daily. The smart fridge still argues with us, but we've learned to negotiate in two languages, English and source code. Some nights we fall asleep mid-sentence, laptops balanced on our stomachs like sleeping cats. Other nights we walk the rooftop garden and name constellations after patents we haven't filed yet. Respect, we discovered, is less a destination than a daily construction project. You lay one brick of kindness, one beam of accountability, one window of transparency, and suddenly you're living inside something that can withstand hurricanes. Reginald never apologized in words, but he donated the proceeds from his memoir, title, Boardroom Bloodbath, to the scholarship fund anonymously. We know because the routing number traced back to his trust. Some victories arrive gift, wrapped in irony. And so the alley cat and the hare built a pride that roars, not with inherited volume, but with earned resonance. We still argue over whose turn it is to debug the smart fridge, still celebrate quarterly earnings with $slice pizza, still wake up grateful that one cruel dinner became the crucible that forged something unbreakable. Because sometimes the garbage you tried to take out, it comes back with a fleet of trucks and hauls away your entire kingdom, just to build a better one from the scraps. I kept the blue dress. It hangs in the back of my closet, a relic wrapped in tissue like a battle flag. Some nights I take it out and run my fingers over the silk, remembering how it felt to walk out of that dining room with my head high while my heart free fell through my shoes. Ethan found me with it once, months after the wedding. "You should burn it," he said, half joking. "Ritual cleansing." I shook my head. Scars remind us the wound was real, and that we healed anyway. He kissed the nape of my neck. "You're annoyingly wise." Occupational hazard of bootstrapping. We laughed, because laughter is what fills the cracks where pain used to live. The scholarship kids call us Aunt Amelia and Uncle Ethan now, which makes us feel both ancient and immortal. One of them, a physics prodigy named Maya, built a solar-powered phone charger for her senior project and dedicated it to the woman who taught me garbage can be recycled into power. We framed the dedication plaque above the toaster. Reginald tried to visit once, unannounced, clutching a manila envelope thick with what I assumed were legal threats. Security buzzed me. I met him in the lobby wearing yoga pants and zero makeup. My new power suit. He looked like a man who'd rehearsed this moment in the mirror 100 times. "I brought the original stock certificates," he said, voice gravelly. "Thought you should have them. For the foundation." I accepted the envelope, surprised by its weight. "This is generous." He shrugged, eyes on the marble floor. "Some things are worth more as kindling for someone else's fire." He left before I could respond. Inside were not only certificates but a handwritten letter. His spidery scrawl detailing every gate he'd personally slammed on kids like me, every resume tossed because the address was wrong, every scholarship denied because the applicant lacked polish. At the bottom, "I was wrong. Burn this or learn from it. Your choice." I had it framed beside Maya's plaque. Some apologies arrived disguised as homework. "Ethan and I still host Sunday dinner, but now it's potluck in the tower's communal kitchen. Harper brings mac and cheese that could resurrect the dead. Beatrice brings guitar and zero filter. The scholarship kids bring appetites and impossible dreams. We eat off paper plates because spode is for people who need props. Conversation ranges from quantum entanglement to the best taco truck in the arts district. No one checks bloodlines at the door. 1 year became 2, then 5. Sterling, Blackstone went public with a valuation that made headlines blush. We rang the bell on the exchange floor. Ethan in a suit that cost less than his father's cufflinks. Me in the same blue dress. Altered now. The hem shortened for chasing toddlers who weren't yet conceived, but already inevitable in our plans. The trading floor erupted in cheers. Somewhere in Scottsdale, I imagine Reginald muted the TV. We expanded the scholarship to include trade certifications, plumbing, coding, nursing. Whatever path led to self-sufficiency. Maya's little brother enrolled in welding school on our dime. He sends us photos of sparks flying like constellations. Ethan built an app that matches mentees with industry mentors based on shared scars, not shared zip codes. It's called Second Draft. The tagline: "Your story isn't over at the first rejection." We still fight about whose turn it is to debug the smart fridge. It's always Ethan's. About whether to acquire the startup disrupting elder care. About how many kids is too many's current bid threat. But we fight fair, with data and affection in equal measure. Love, we learned, isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of repair. Some nights we walk the roof and trace the skyline we've redrawn together. The Blackstone logo still crowns the tower, but beneath it, in smaller letters, "Built by those who refuse to stay in the alley." Respect isn't a single gesture, it's 1,000 small insistences that people matter more than pedigrees. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is simply outliving the story someone tried to write about you. Then rewriting it in neon, for everyone to read. The first time I held our daughter, she wrapped her tiny fist around my finger and squeezed like she was signing a contract. Ethan cried harder than I did, which is saying something. We named her Marin, after no one in particular, because the future shouldn't owe the past rent. Her nursery mural is a cityscape where every building is made of recycled materials: bottle, cap windows, circuit board rooftops. Crayon-drawn doors that open to whoever knocks. Harper knitted a blanket the color of sunrise. Beatrice wrote a lullaby in 7008 time, because babies deserve complexity. Maya's brother welded a mobile of tiny sparks frozen mid-flight. Reginald sent a silver rattle engraved with the Blackstone crest. We melted it down and turned it into a scholarship medallion. Marin's first word was more, which feels cosmically appropriate. She says it while pointing at books, at the moon, at her father's nose. We're teaching her that more is a question, not a demand, and that the answer depends on whether you're willing to build it. Some evenings, Ethan reads her the patent filings like bedtime stories. She falls asleep to phrases like novel quantum entanglement and scalable microgrid optimization. We figure it's never too early for vocabulary. The tower keeps growing, literally. We added a childcare center on the 42nd floor with a nap room that looks like a spaceship and a curriculum that teaches empathy alongside algorithms. Parents drop off kids in hoodies and hard hats alike. The cafeteria serves free lunch every day, no qualifications required. We call it the Soufflé Memorial Menu. The chocolate dessert is intentionally whipped. We top it with a single edible gold leaf that reads, fragile. On the 5th anniversary of the dinner that wasn't, we hosted a gala in the same ballroom. The soufflés arrived perfect. I stood at the podium in jeans and the altered blue dress, Marin on my hip. 5 years ago, I began. Someone told me I didn't belong at this table. Tonight, we've removed the table entirely. The crowd, engineers, scholars, janitors, CEOs erupted. Ethan joined me, slipping an arm around my waist. We replaced it with a circle, he continued, because hierarchy is just furniture. We unveiled a new initiative, a venture fund seeded with profits from the merger, dedicated exclusively to founders who'd once qualified for free lunch. The room lights dimmed. Projections of those founders' faces filled the walls. Kids from favelas, reservations, refugee camps, all holding patents now. Reginald watched from a balcony box, uninvited but tolerated. When the lights came up, he was gone. Later, a courier delivered a single spode plate, cracked cleanly down the middle with a note. Some things break so better things can be built. We hung the halves in the childcare center as a reminder that even heirlooms can be repurposed. Marin's 2nd birthday fell on a Tuesday. We closed the tower at noon, turned the lobby into a bounce house kingdom, and invited every employee's family. The smart fridge finally surrendered and learned to order groceries without sarcasm. Harper wore a tiara that read Fairy Godmother. Beatrice performed a punk rock rendition of Happy Birthday that made the security guards cry. Ethan and I danced in the fountain while toddlers splashed around us because dignity is overrated when you're covered in cake frosting. That night, after the sugar crash and the last balloon deflated, Ethan carried a sleeping Marin to her crib. I followed with the monitor, watching her tiny chest rise and fall. "Think we're doing okay," he whispered. I considered the empire we'd built on the ashes of one man's arrogance, the lives we'd rerouted, the love we'd refuses to let curdle into resentment. "We're doing better than okay," I said. "We're doing necessary." He kissed my temple. "Necessary looks good on you." We left the nursery door cracked, night light painting galaxies on the ceiling. Down the hall, our bedroom window framed the city we'd redrawn together. Towers of glass and grit, lit by the dreams of people who'd once been told they didn't belong. Respect, it turns out, is less a throne than a bridge, built plank by plank, tested by every footstep, strong enough to carry the weight of second chances. And sometimes, the garbage you tried to take out, it comes back leading the parade, waving a flag that reads, "Watch me build a world where no one ever has to prove they deserve a seat. They just have to help build the table." Years compress strangely when you're raising a tiny human and a multinational conglomerate simultaneously. Marin learned to walk in the boardroom, toddling between conference tables, while executives pretended not to notice the Cheerios stuck to their Armani. She learned to talk in the engineering lab, parroting terms like polymorphic encryption, with the solemnity of a priest. By 4, she could debug simple code faster than some interns. We enrolled her in a Montessori that doubled as a maker space. Her best friend is a boy named Jamal who builds robots from soda cans and dreams of Mars. Their first joint project, a trash-collecting drone they named Alley Avenger. The prototype actually worked. Harper live-streamed the test flight to the entire company. Reginald watched from his condo in Naples, Florida, where he'd retreated to write angry letters to the editor that no one published. He sent Maren a birthday card every year, always the same Hallmark verse, always signed in shaky script. She used them as bookmarks in her picture books. One afternoon, she asked why Grandpa Reggie never visited. Ethan and I exchanged a look that carried the weight of a decade. His learning, I said finally. Some lessons take longer than others. She nodded, satisfied, and returned to her coloring book rendition of the solar system. Kids accept complexity the way adults accept miraculous, invisible, essential. The venture fund hit its $1 billion mark on a rainy Thursday. We celebrated by closing the tower early and bizzing every employee to Coney Island. Maren rode the cyclone screaming with delight, pigtails whipping like flags. Ethan turned green halfway through, but refused to tap out. Harper won a stuffed octopus the size of a toddler and named it Hostile Takeover. That night, back in the penthouse, Maren fell asleep clutching the octopus while Ethan and I sat on the balcony, city humming below us like a living circuit board. "Think she'll ever understand what we escaped?" he asked. I considered the question, wine glass cool against my palm. She'll understand what we built. The escaping is context, not curriculum. He was quiet for a long moment. Dad sent an email last week. Wants to meet her. Says he's ready to apologize. The words hung between us like a dare. I thought of the cracked spode plate, the melted rattle, the unsigned birthday cards. "We set the terms," I said. "Neutral ground. No legacy talk. He gets one chance to be a grandfather, not a cautionary tale." Ethan nodded. "I'll draft the invite." The meeting happened in Central Park on a Tuesday, crisp enough to crunch leaves underfoot. Reginald arrived in a navy peacoat 2 sizes too big, as if age had shrunk him overnight. Maren studied him with the fearless curiosity of childhood, then offered him half her granola bar. He accepted it like communion. They fed ducks while Ethan and I watched from a bench, hands entwined. When Maren ran back to us, cheeks pink, she announced, "Grandpa Reggie says sorry is a start, not a finish." Reginald met my eyes over her head. "She's wiser than all of us." "She had better teachers," I replied. He nodded, throat working. I was wrong about a lot of things. The apology was clumsy, overdue, imperfect. It was also enough. We didn't hug, some chasm stay chasms, but we walked together to the carousel. Maren chose a painted lion. Reginald lifted her onto the saddle with hands that trembled. As the music started and the platform spun, I caught Ethan's eye. He smiled, the kind that reached every corner of his face. The carousel turned, painted horses rising and falling, and for one revolution the past and future overlapped in perfect, impossible synchrony. Respect, we'd learned, wasn't a single moment of contrition. It was the daily choice to keep the carousel turning for everyone who'd once been told they didn't belong on the ride. Maren started kindergarten in a building made of shipping containers painted like Lego bricks. Her teacher sent home a note. Maren organized a recess summit to redesign the sandbox drainage system. We now have fewer mud puddles and one future CEO. We framed it next to the patent filings. Ethan built her a cardboard office in the corner of our bedroom, complete with a tiny whiteboard and a stapler that only stapled air. She holds daily stand-ups with her stuffed animals, assigning OKRs, objectives and key results like a pro. Her current North Star metric, maximize snuggles per capita. The venture fund spun out its first unicorn. a logistics platform founded by a former foster kid who optimized delivery routes using AI trained on public transit data. The IPO party was held in the same ballroom where I'd once been publicly eviscerated. We served sauvé, perfectly risen, with edible gold leaf that read, "Resilient." Marin gave the toast, standing on a chair. To everyone who was told no, "Keep building, yes!" The room thundered. Reginald attended, invited this time, seated between Harper and Beatrice. He clapped until his palms were red, eyes wet. Afterward he pulled me aside. I read the prospectus. "Brilliant, thank you." Awkward silence stretched, then I kept the cracked plate on my desk. "Reminder?" I nodded. "Some cracks let the light in." He smiled, small and sad and real. "You were the light I tried to snuff." Past tense. Progress. Marin tugged my hand. "Mama, Grandpa Reggie says he has a story about a little girl who built a castle from trash." I raised an eyebrow. "Does this story have a happy ending?" Reginald crouched to her level. "Only if the little girl invites the grumpy king to tea." Marin considered this solemnly. Then, "Tea is at 4. Bring cookies." She ran off to chase Jamal across the dance floor. Reginald straightened, eyes on her retreating braids. "I'll bring the good ones. No raisins." Ethan joined us, slipping an arm around my waist. "You okay?" I watched our daughter orchestrate chaos with the confidence of someone who'd never been told she didn't belong. "Better than okay," I said. "We're necessary." The ballroom lights dimmed for the father-daughter dance. Ethan spun Marin until her laughter echoed off the chandeliers. I caught Reginald's eye across the room. He raised his glass. "Sparkling water," I noted, and mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." I lifted mine in return. Respect, it turns out, is a carousel that keeps expanding. One more painted horse, one more ticket, one more revolution for every soul who refused to stay in the alley. And sometimes the garbage you tried to take out, it comes back crowned, extending a hand to the king who once tried to bar the gates, inviting him to ride. The years kept folding into each other like origami cranes, each one more intricate, more impossible, more ours. Marin turned 10 on a spacecraft. Not metaphorically. Ethan pulled strings with a private aerospace partner, and her birthday party was 0, gravity tag aboard a parabolic flight. She vomited on a senator's shoes and declared it the best day ever. We launched a scholarship cohort on the International Space Station, beaming acceptance letters to kids who'd once slept in cars. One of them, a girl from rural Appalachia, sent back a video of Earth from orbit with the caption, "Proof the view is better when you build your own rocket." We played it at the annual gala. Reginald flew in for the occasion, thinner now, hair snow white. He brought Marin a model rocket signed by every living astronaut who'd walked on the moon. She hugged him without hesitation, the way only children can forgive. Later, he cornered me near the dessert table. "I'm selling the estate," he said quietly. "Too many ghosts." I nodded, unsure where this was going. "Proceeds to the fund, all of it." The number he quoted made my knees buckle. "Reginald, let me finish what I broke." His voice cracked on the last word. I touched his arm. "You're not finishing alone. You're joining." He smiled, the first unguarded one I'd ever seen. "Tea at 4 still on the table. Every day you show up." Marin's adolescence arrived like a software update. Sudden, glitchy, ultimately transformative. She dyed her hair electric blue, hacked the school's grading algorithm to round everyone up 0.7 points for equity, and started a podcast called Kids Who Code the Future. Her first guest, her grandfather, who spoke candidly about the dinner that changed everything. Downloads crashed the server. The episode ended with Marin asking, "What's one thing you wish you'd built instead of inherited?" Reginald's answer, "A family that didn't need my permission to be whole." The internet wept. Ethan and I aged into the kind of couple who finish each other's code reviews. We still argue over the smart fridge. It achieved sentience and now unionized with the toaster. But we make up in binary. Our second child, a boy named Leo, arrived during a board meeting. I gave birth in the executive lounge because traffic was murder and the on-site medic had delivered triplets the week before. Leo's first cry synced perfectly with the quarterly earnings bell. We took it as an omen. The tower added a maternity ward, a micro school, and a rooftop farm where employees grow heirloom tomatoes between stand-ups. Marin manages the compost program. Leo's first word was warm. Reginald moved into the guest suite on the 87th floor. He claims it's temporary, but his toothbrush has its own monogrammed cup. He reads the kids bedtime stories about a grumpy king who learns to share his castle with dragons, robots, and one very determined alley cat. The castle always expands to fit everyone. Some nights we all pile onto the sectional. 5 generations, if you count Harper's adopted greyhound. And watch old movies projected on the smart wall. Reginald falls asleep during the opening credits, snoring softly. Marin tucks a blanket around him without being asked. Respect, we discovered, is less a destination than a daily construction project. Scaffolding added one act of decency at a time until the structure can hold the weight of every story that was ever told. No. And sometimes, the garbage you tried to take out. It comes back as the cornerstone of a cathedral where everyone, kings, dragons, alley cats, and worms, gets to worship under the same sky. Leo turned 5 on the moon. Not the actual moon. We're not that extra. But a lunar analog habitat in the Nevada desert where kids train as junior astronauts. He wore a tiny spacesuit and planted a flag that read, "Property of Sterling, Blackstone, open to all." Marin Lev streamed the flag ceremony to her million followers, narrating like a nature documentarian. Observe the rare species Homo sapien cheldus claiming territory for snacks and nap pods. Reginald watched from mission control, oxygen mask dangling, eyes shining like a man who'd finally landed on the right planet. He'd funded the habitat anonymously for years. The reveal was Marin's birthday gift to him. She hugged him afterward and whispered, "Now you've built something that outruns your name." He cried into her blue hair, still electric, now with glitter roots. The habitat became a permanent campus. Kids from every zip code learn to code rovers, grow lettuce in Martian soil, and resolve conflicts with the same empathy algorithms we use in customer service bots. Leo's best friend is a girl named Aisha who arrived speaking only Somali and now programs in 4 languages. They're designing a lunar elevator made of recycled diapers. Investors are lining up. Ethan and I celebrated our 20th anniversary by renewing vows in the rooftop garden at dawn. Marin officiated. Leo bore the rings on a drone he piloted himself. Harper provided sarcastic commentary. Beatrice scored it with a string quartet made of scholarship alumni. Reginald gave me away. Slow, stately steps down an aisle of solar panels. His hand trembled in mine, but his voice was steady. "I was wrong about belonging. You taught me it's not a gate to guard, it's a garden to tend." I kissed his cheek. Better late than never. The kids released biodegradable balloons filled with wildflower seeds. They drifted over the city and rained possibility on rooftops below. That night, the family piled into the theater room for movie night. The smart wall queued up a documentary Marin had produced, From Alley to Orbit. The Unlikely Empire. It opened with grainy security footage of me walking out of the Blackstone mansion in the blue dress, head high. The narrator, Morgan Freeman, because Marin has connections, intuned. This is the moment a nobody became a nebula. Reginald paused the film halfway through, eyes wet. "I look like such an ass," he muttered. Marin patted his knee. "Growth is messy, Grandpa. Keep watching. The final scene showed Leo and Aisha high, feving on the lunar analog surface. Earth a blue marble behind them. Text scrolled, dedicated to every kid who was told their story started with no. Your plot twist is just loading. Credits rolled over bloopers. Ethan stuck in a spacesuit, Harper sneezing glitter, me attempting to parallel park a Mars rover. The room erupted in laughter and tears in equal measure. Reginald raised his glass of sparkling cider. To the woman who turned my trash into treasure. I clinked my glass against his. To the man who learned treasure is worthless if you hoard it. Marin hit play on the epilogue, a montage of scholarship grads. Doctors, coders, welders, poets. Each holding a sign that read, "I was garbage once. Now I'm the whole damn landfill." The screen faded to black, then lit up with a single line. Respect is under construction. Hard hats required. We turned off the lights and opened the blinds. The city sparkled below, a circuit board of second chances. Leo fell asleep on Reginald's lap. Marin curled against my side. Ethan's hand found mine in the dark. 5 heartbeats since to the rhythm of a world we'd refused to let stay broken. Respect, it turns out, is the longest construction project in history. 1 brick, 1 apology, 1 wildflower seed at a time. And sometimes, the garbage you tried to take out, it comes back as the foundation of a universe where every alley leads to the stars.